Hey there, good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you here to the Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show. This is a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So, we're here to do an episode of favorites. This is a show I do on Wednesday nights every week in which I pick something, either a favorite five or maybe just a five this or a list of five or a 10 spot or a 15 or even a 25. I've actually done even 150. But generally speaking, it's a number with a title to it. And sometimes I do an album ranking or a band ranking or some other topic. So basically, it's a list of things. So I have a five list today. And the five bands that exploded on the scene. So the only restriction here is that the album coming out of the gate or the band coming out of the gate exploded on the scene and people were listening to them and loving them right from the start. Most of them continued and got stronger or had great second or third albums and did very well. Or stayed at the top. Some of them maybe not so much. Okay, so I haven't put these in any particular order, so we're just going to start with Led Zeppelin 1 album. This came out in 1969, the first album by this legendary band, one of the great rock bands in history. This album has never been a masterpiece with me, but has a lot of strong stuff on it. So, of course, it has Good Times, Bad Times, Dazed and Confused, Communication Breakdown. These are probably the more radio-friendly, more well-known tracks, but there's a lot of deep stuff in here too. You're gonna come. Your time is gonna come. That's what I meant to say. Babe, I'm gonna leave you. I can't quit you, baby. All these are really, really good deep cut stuff. This album is quite bluesy as well. It's got a really bluesy flavor to it. Actually, a kind of a heavy bluesy flavor. Not too dissimilar from Black Sabbath's first album too, which would come out the next year. Both have a lot of that bluesy sound. The Sabbath album's darker and maybe a little bit heavier, but there's a lot of similarities between the two albums, in my opinion. I think so, and both launched two fantastic careers. But for the purpose of this show, we're going to be doing Led Zeppelin. So Led Zeppelin came out of the gate, and they just continued smashing their way to the top of rock history. Led Zeppelin 2 was bigger. Led Zeppelin 4 was bigger. I mean, they just kept getting bigger and stronger every year out. And just some really great stuff. And so this was the beginning, that explosion that launched this band. Next band up. Another band that kind of exploded out of the gate. The Police. Never had a bad album. Every one of their albums was great. It's just degrees of great, This is one of the tougher discographies to rank because, other than Ghost in the Machine, the other four albums are like near perfection, in my opinion. So this has the big hit Roxanne and Can't Stand Losing You. Those are the two more well-known songs, but there's a lot of deep stuff on here too. So Lonely, great tune. Be My Girl, Truth Hits Everybody, Hole in My Life, this is really strong album. Maybe not their strongest album, but really launched them onto that song. Roxanne was a monster hit. Just really kind of launched this whole band into the limelight, and from that point on, it was just the only regrets I have with Police is that they only did the 5 albums, and that was it. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they decided, hey, we're at the peak of our performance. Let's go out now, and then people will never be able to say we had a bad album. But it would have been nice to have more stuff from them, that's for sure. So the Police, one of those bands that exploded out of the gate. This band definitely exploded out of the big gate, and this album was a big album, big album. Lots of fantastic stuff on here. Kind of new wave-ish, of course. The Cars, and went on to have a lot of big albums after this one, but I still think this one may be the biggest of theirs. Lots of good stuff on here. Let the Good Times Roll, Just What I Needed, My Best Friend's Girl, You're All That I Got. Just proliferated with legendary tracks. Those tracks got played a lot. And, some of the deeper stuff is really good too. Again, the same type of thing. I'm in Touch With Your World. Yeah, some really strong stuff here. This album, much later than the previous two that we discussed, came out in 78. And then, I thought for a minute there, I thought I had Candy O in my hand. And then they followed it up with Candy O, and then it just not really any really weak stuff, at least in the first go around with them. The first three, I think it's like the first 5 or 6 albums. And then I'm not sure about the last one because I don't own it. But other than that, these are great. Definitely a band that belongs on this list. Bands that exploded out of the gate, they definitely did that. Next, no band exploded. Well, few bands exploded out of the gate as well as this band did, the Knack. They were absolutely, that summer in 1979, dominating all the radio. The song My Sharona was everywhere. I believe the album sold 7 million copies. That's a lot of copies for a band that had never been really noticed before. This album is absolutely a fantastic album. Power pop, raw, heavy, well, not heavy, but raw, kind of catchy riffs, catchy beats, iconic beats, really. And of course, you've got the big ones on here. She's So Selfish, My Sharona, and where is it? That's What the Little Girls Do. Yeah, that one. Then you've got other stuff here that I think is almost as good. Some of the deep cuts is really good too. Let Me Out and Frustrated, very similar tracks, bookending the whole album. Fantastic. I like the Siamese twins, That Monkey and Me too, really good. Your Number or Your Name, Oh Tara. I said That's What the Little Girls Do, but it was actually Good Girls Don't. That was the other hit. So Good Girls Don't, She's So Selfish, and My Sharona are kind of the big, well-known songs on the album, although My Sharona just dwarfs all of them. But yeah, fantastic, really catchy band. Lots of heavy, catchy riffs, poppy kind of riffs, but great. I love the vocals on here too. So that's number 4. And the last, and definitely not the least, one of the biggest debut albums in history, if not the biggest debut albums in history. I've heard people say, is this the best album that was ever made? I don't know. Boston's debut. This band exploded. They weren't even really a band. Most of the stuff was done here by one guy, but once the band was exploded, he had to come up with people to fill the holes. Yeah, just great. And for me, for the longest time, the only song, well, for the first couple of years, I didn't even listen to the album because I wanted that Kiss album, and they gave me this instead. But once I got into it, I realized I had been missing some time. So More Than a Feeling, of course, is that one track that is probably one of the most well-known tracks in history, I think. Peace of Mind, really good track too. Foreplay, Long Time, another really good stuff. And it just, like, there's no really bad tracks on here. And as I started listening to the album more, I realized how many of the other tracks I really like Smokin', Hitching a Ride, Let Me Take You Home Tonight. These are all fantastic tracks. This is a absolute masterpiece album. It's the only one of these ones, I think, for me, that has made my masterpiece list. I think this is the only one. But it's just such a great album. I kind of saved it for last because I think it's probably the biggest and the best of the 5 albums. But still, yeah, just absolutely great stuff and explode on the scene. Both the last 2 bands, even though they explode on the scene, kind of faded. Boston just stopped making albums, really, after the second one. They just kind of had too much space between their albums, and people just lost track of them. As for the Knack, they really didn't measure up to this again. The second album was okay. After that, they just disappeared. But, yep, so that's the 5 I chose today. I'll just reiterate them in case you're keeping score. So Led Zeppelin, their debut album. The Police, their debut album. Actually, these are all debut albums, so I don't need to say that. The Police, The Cars, Get the Knack, Buy the Knack, and last but not least, Boston's debut. So, yeah, some really, really great music from 5 bands who just exploded out of the gate. So I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Please hit the like and subscribe. That's much appreciated. If you want to leave any comments about any of the 5 bands, or you want to say something about them that because you feel strongly about them and you just got to get it on there, or if you want to name some bands you think should have been on this list, or I might do a second one. You never know. I've done that before. I like to do 2 or 3 of the same topic. Anyways, if you want to do that, you can do that and leave that in the comment section. We will be back next Wednesday night with another episode of Favorites. So please take care of yourself, and we'll see you then. And goodbye.